It cannot be right that the continent that has allegedly the wealthiest resources of all the continents of the world is also the home of the poorest people on the globe. That disconnect is not a good disconnect, and we need to work to change that disconnect.
He said it, drops mic. Hi guys, how are you? Welcome to another episode of my vlog. My name is Zendira Oganga. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for being here. And if you're new, you know what to do. Click the subscribe button. Ghana's president is not the most favorite president outside of the continent. And why? He's a very thought-provoking leader, and that is for the African continent. I mean, he's always saying things that Africans should be saying. He's very futuristic, he's very Afro-optimistic, and the West hates him for that. And in this video, I'll be playing new clips that will just show you why every other person is uncomfortable with what he is always saying. The first thing, he's the first president to go to the UN General Assembly, and during an address, he said, listen to the clip, just listen to the clip.
Collaboration is certainly needed amongst nations of the world to stop this rape of Africa.
I think Ghana's president comes off as this person who believes in Africa, lives here, knows its potential, and is very saddened by the fact that Africa's potential is always just wasting away. Point number one, he's very vocal about African natural resources. He says Africa is by far the richest continent when it comes to mineral resources, but Africa is still the poorest country. How is that possible? We have oil, we have gold, we have diamond, we have like agro commodities like cocoa, coffee, tea. All that is in this continent, yet this continent has the poorest people. It has the most potential, yet that potential is not paying off here. And he's asking these very difficult questions in global platforms and saying, yo, this has to stop. If Africa has mineral resources, then that value should trickle down to the people and help these people. Listen to this.
It should not be lost on anyone that the minerals on which the world depends to move industry and manufacturing are mostly available in Africa. And yet we, who own these fundamental resources by birthright, have remained poor, whilst our minerals have brought vast wealth to nations and peoples outside our continent. It is worth pointing out also that not only do we not get a fair share of the wealth once extracted, our lands, our environment, our oceans are often left devastated by the process, and the competition to gain control over these minerals has often led to insecurity in our country.
Now, you guys, one of the reasons why Africa barely benefits from its raw materials and its resources is because we export raw. For example, Kenya, we are big on tea and coffee, and it's exported raw, and then it's processed in Bangladesh, it's processed in London, and they're the people that make value from our tea because they take quality tea, they blend it with useless tea and sell it at inflated prices across the world. So Kenyan farmers are getting a very small percentage. Same to flowers. There was a day I was talking to Dr. Winnie Byanyima. You might know her right now. She is working with the UN body that deals with AIDS, but previously she was at Oxfam. And that day I remember she was telling me after her very famous Davos speech, you should go and check it out at the World Economic Forum. She was telling me, if you look at the women in Naivasha is known for flowers. If you could just increase their monthly earning or past 10, just increase it by $1, you're changing the life of this woman, because that dollar will go a long way for her family. But no, there's some rich people in Netherlands who say all the profits trickle back down to us. And Nana Akuffo Addo is saying, you want to play that game with us? Cool. No problem. He went to Switzerland were, you know, massaging him on Sijui Coco. He was like, excuse me, I am no longer selling raw cocoa. And just for context, Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, together export 70% of the world cocoa. Do you know who the richest countries are when it comes to chocolate? It's neither of these two. And he's saying, moving forward, nobody is benefiting from the resources that Ghanaians should be benefiting from, and will begin adding value. And when you add value, it means you'll pay a premium price. Listening.
As I have stated on occasion, Ghana no longer wants to be dependent on the production and export of raw materials, including cocoa beans. We intend to process more and more of our cocoa in our country with the aim of producing more chocolate ourselves, because we believe that there can be no future prosperity for the Ghanaian people in the short, medium, or long term if we continue to maintain economic structures that are dependent on the production and export of raw materials. We intend to add value to our raw materials, industrialize and enhance agricultural productivity. This is the best way we can put Ghana at the high end of the value chain in the global marketplace and create jobs for the teeming masses of Ghanaians.
I think the other thing that really sticks out for me is aid. Now, Africa has been painted as that place where if you don't send aid, people are going to die, systems are not going to move. To some extent, it's true. I mean, there are some parts of this continent that are heavily dependent on aid. And if it wasn't for that aid, then a lot of lives would suffer. But 60 years later, we're still dying from hunger, disease. I think very many dynamics need to change, and that's what President Nana Akuffo Addo says. He says, it's time we begin weaning Africa of aid that doesn't serve a progressive purpose, okay? So he says it's a shame that 60 years after independence, Ghana is still getting aid from Europe and European taxpayers to be able to fund their education and their health. And these are very key sectors in any country. So it means you're at the mercy of France and the rest. If they're not giving you money, then it means that these systems in your country are not going to work. And he's saying, no, we can't live like that. And on that point of development aid, I could be wrong, but I've read certain books, and one of the scholars that I really love reading and listening to is Dambisa Moyo, and she says aid is not helping Africa. In fact, it's retrogressive instead of being progressive. She says, if you want to help somebody, send short, sharp, targeted aid, solves the problem immediately. Let's get done with it. If you want to continue giving me aid, then deal with the source of the problem instead of just the problem in itself. For example, if there's malaria and you're just giving me mosquito nets, that's like the end product. Can we work a way where we can do research, we can partner, we can get a vaccine for malaria so that in the next 10 years, malaria is not a problem?
It is not right for a country like Ghana, 60 years after independence, to still have its health and education budgets being financed on the basis of the generosity and charity of European taxpayers. By now, we should be able to finance our basic needs ourselves. Our perspective has not to be what the French taxpayer decides to do with whatever surpluses that they have in France. They're welcome.
I think my biggest takeaway from all the listening of Ghana's president that I've done, President Nana Akuffo Addo, is he's saying it's time to change. It's time we change the narrative about Africa. And we as Africans, it's time we change the way we do business with the rest of the world. I think it's just one president who's had the balls to say what he says. And I think that's President Kagame, because, I mean, a time has to come when you just have to cut the slack and allow us to be.
And you look also at the history that has gone on between Africa and Europe. That is a natural relationship and a natural alliance, but a relationship that has to be different from the relationship that we've had up to now. Why do I say so? That relationship has enriched Europe, but has not enriched Africa. So we need to change that dynamic. And we can only do it by ourselves taking the correct measures for our future.
You can listen during your free time to Dr. Chihombori. She's very passionate about this. You can listen to Dambisa Moyo, who's always saying, stop sending aid to Africa, because in retrospect, it's dead aid. You can listen to all these materials, they're out there, and you can always feel free. The comment section is open. You could agree with me, you could not agree with me. It's all open. Do you think that the West should continue sending aid here? Do you think that it's time we began selling our products as value added so we can make the money from it? Do you think that the West is responsible for most of the problems that we see here? The war, the hunger, the disease, are they perpetuating those toxic cycles post the colonial era? The comment section is always open, you guys. Talk to me. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, if you'd like to see more of this content. I've been so obsessed with Ghana of late. Who knows, maybe if I go to Cape Verde or Namibia or UK or US, let's stick with African countries. Maybe I might become obsessed, but let me know if you're enjoying this content. Give it a thumbs up, it means a lot to me, and subscribe. Cheers, guys.